Let's take a look at IR verbs in the present tense. And to do that, we will take our sample verb, which will be vivir, meaning to live. And the structure of IR verbs is identical to the structure of AR and ER verbs, with the only difference being that our infinitive ending is now an IR. And it again corresponds to the infinitive to of an English verb. And then once we get rid of our infinitive ending, we're left again with our stem. And this is what you will add your conjugation endings to, And those endings are as follows. We have yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras. And if you don't need to learn vosotros, then just don't worry about it, since it is pretty unique to Spain at this point. Ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay. So our endings for IR verbs are as follows. Yo, o, exactly the same as both AR and ER verbs. Tú, es, él, ella, usted, and I'm not making a mistake, all of these endings are exactly the same. In fact, the only differences between ER and IR verbs will be the nosotros and vosotros forms, which are imos and is, accent on the I, and ellos, ellas, ustedes, again, is the same as for ER verbs, and it is en. So let's conjugate vivir in all of these forms. So we have our stem, and we're just going to put our endings right on the end of it. So we have yo, stem ending, yo vivo, I live, tú, stem and ending, tú vives, you live, él, ella, usted, stem and ending, él, ella, usted vive, he, she, or you lives, nosotros, nosotras, stem and ending, nosotros, nosotras vivimos, we live, vosotros, vosotras, vivís, you plural live, ellos, ellas, ustedes, stem and ending, viven, they or you plural live. So now let's just try another example. We will look at a different verb. How about we look at escribir, which means to write. And our subject will be Marta y Juan. Our verb escribir. Okay, so our conjugation process is exactly the same. Step 1, subject and subject pronoun. Step 2, identify the verb and make sure it's a stem, so drop the infinitive ending. 3, choose the appropriate conjugation ending, which matches your subject pronoun. And 4, take the stem and add the ending to it to conjugate the verb. So over here, let's look at our subject, which is Marta y Juan. And of course we see that those are names, not subject pronouns, so we have to figure out which subject pronoun would replace them. So it's plural since there are two. It's going to be masculine because there's one boy involved. And it's in the third person because we're talking about them, so we need ellos. Step number 2 is to identify our verb, which we see is escribir, to write, and just drop the infinitive ending, drop the IR, so we're left with our stem. And then we need to choose our conjugation ending, which for ellos is en, and we just add that right to the end of our stem. So we have escriben, so Marta y Juan escriben, Marta and Juan write. Juan write. Now let's try a challenge. I'm going to give you a subject and a verb, and you have to conjugate it yourself, and I'm not going to let you see the endings or the conjugation walkthrough step process. So I'll give you two examples. So the first one will be tu, and the verb I want to be decidir, which means to decide. And for number 2, I will have Rico y yo, and the verb will be dividir, which means to divide. Alright, so pause the video, conjugate these verbs, and then unpause the video and I'll give you the answers. Okay, so to conjugate this verb, first we identify our subject, tu, which is a subject pronoun already. Next, we move on to our verb, step 2, which is decidir, to decide. And we're going to drop our infinitive ending so that we're left with our stem. Then we need our conjugation ending, which for tu is es, so we put that onto the end of our stem, and we have tú decides, you decide. Alright, moving on to example number 2. Again, first we identify our subject, so we have Rico y yo, and we need a subject pronoun to replace this. So we see it's plural, masculine, because Rico is a boy, and it's in the first person because yo is involved. And a handy trick for remembering whether it should be first or second or third person when you have more than one thing in it and one of them is in the third person and one's in the first, is to remember that you should look for the first person first, and if it's in there, then that's what you use. Second person second, and then third person third if you can't find first or second person. Alright, so now let's look at our verb here. Oh, sorry, we didn't decide a subject pronoun. Plural first person, masculine, will be nosotros. So then, moving on to our verb, dividir, to divide, we just need to drop our infinitive ending, left with our stem, and our ending for nosotros is imos, which we add to the end, and we have dividimos. So Rico y yo dividimos, Rico and I divide.